All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we are going to continue along the path of piety by looking at the final Cleric subclass in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, the Twilight domain. Now, I may mention this in a couple other videos. One of my favorite things about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is at the beginning of each section, Tasha will have a little note that she puts in there. They're all kind of quippy and funny, but I have to admit, this one is particularly good. So I'm going to actually read what Tasha has to say about this. Her quip for the Twilight domain is, I can't believe I'm try to gig again. I can't believe I'm writing this, but I think I could get behind a faith focused on mood lighting and evening wear. And that so encompasses this class. The Twilight domain is built on the idea of just the magnificence of the Twilight itself. If you're not completely familiar with what the term Twilight means, it has nothing to do with sparkly vampires. Get that out of your head. That is an abomination. No, Twilight refers to, and before I say this wrong, I'm actually going to Twilight. Come on. Definition. Thank you. That's not that hard. Yeah, it's exactly what I thought about. The actual definition: the soft glowing light from the sky when the sun is below the horizon, caused by the refraction and scattering of the sun's rays from the atmosphere. So effectively, twilight is the actual name for the light when the sun is below the horizon, but it's not actually dark yet. And it is amazing. If you've never been in a place without a lot of artificial lights, you may have never experienced Twilight. But if you are, in a forest camping or on a farm or just anywhere where you can kind of get away from street lamps and light bulbs and everything like that, and just experience the Twilight. It is this incredibly amazing experience. Like, everything almost seems to kind of glow because the light that you're getting is not direct light. You have this kind of ambient light that is just being reflected off of the sun's refractions, and it's this magical to the time of the day. And so this entire domain is built on kind of a respect for that very short, finite period of time, and just the majesty and magicalness of that period, which I love. I think it's such an emotional and emotion evoking kind of subclass. So let's actually dive into the class. First things first, for a really brief refresher on 5th edition class design, every class is designed to be played very differently. And right from the beginning, and the things that make it play differently we call defining features. Those defining features should show up within the first 2 levels to be counted as defining features. So for the Cleric, the defining features are 1, the channel Divinity, which is an ability clerics have had since they were first introduced. And all clerics actually share one to channel divinity, which is turn undead. All clerics can to turn undead, and then the other to channel divinity they get from their subclass. The other defining feature of a cleric is their subclass called their domain, because they actually choose their domain at level 1. When you are building your cleric, you are also choosing what domain that they follow, unlike most classes who get theirs at level 3. The domain is massively going to affect how your character plays. And then, of course, spellcasting is a kind of defining feature. It's obviously not unique to the cleric. Neither is channel divinity. Paladins share it. It's just clerics channel divinity they can use more often, whereas paladins, they can only use it once, and then they have to take a short race to get it back. The spellcasting is not a unique thing to a cleric, but they are the only full divine spellcasters in the game. So they do have access to quite a few spells that no other class does. The domain itself should affect one of those things and kind of make it more useful or to change how it works. So let's actually dive into the domain. Now, like all domains, one of the first things they list is some example deities you might serve as a Twilight cleric. Now, Twilight is not a domain that is regularly listed in domains. It's kind of new. So finding deities that specifically list the quote-unquote to Twilight domain is probably going to be a little bit more difficult. But the ones they missed, I generally tend to focus on for Forgotten Realms, because that is the official 5th edition campaign setting, and it's the one people are most familiar with. And one of the Forgotten Realms the deities is really, really obvious for a Twilight cleric, to the point where I think most people would think of this particular deity when making a Twilight cleric, and that is Selene. If you're not aware, Selene is the goddess of the moon. She's twin sisters with Shar, who is effectively like the goddess of darkness, and the patron deity of the Underdark. They don't get along. Acolytes of Selene will sometimes actively hunt and kill acolytes of Shar because of how much bad blood there is between Selene and Shar. So Goddess of the Moon for a Twilight cleric makes perfect sense. However, they list 2 other clerics, and they're actually kind of interesting. Or deities, I mean. Helm is one of the deities they list from the Forgotten Realms, and Helm is the Watcher. There was a period of time called the Time of Troubles in the Forgotten Realms, and what it was 2 deities decided to steal the Tablets of Fate, which basically was where the over-god Ao actually wrote down who the major deities were and who the minor deities were, which effectively listed, who were the more powerful deities and who were the less powerful deities. And they did it but because they thought that's where Ao got his power from. It wasn't. It was just the notebook he used to jot shit down, but he got pissed off. And so he kicked all the gods out of heaven and hell, their divine domains, and forced them to walk as mortals on the earth, or into the Toro specifically. And it changed some things massively. Things like clerics actually couldn't cast spells unless they were within like a few miles of their deity's avatar. And it actually ended up with one of the deities actually dying while they were mortal. Mystra, the goddess of magic, was murdered. The one deity that was not kicked out and stripped of most of their godly powers and made to be mortal was Helm. Helm was known to be this very impartial deity, and he got to keep all of his powers because he was placed at the entrance to the divine domains to ensure that none of the deities could get back to their divine domains and effectively ascend back to godhood without first returning the tablets. The funny thing about it was once Ao got the tablets back, just to kind of show people, oh, guess what? These aren't the source of my power. He destroyed the tablets. Just to fuck with people, going, no, you guys wanna do stupid shit like that? Fine. Look, no more tablets. Now none of you guys know who the major and minor deities are, and a huge plot of the Forgotten Realms about what kind of transferred them into the fifth edition of D&D was the Second Sundering, where Ao was rewriting the tablets of fate, and all the gods were massively interfering in the lives of the mortals to try and gain favor and show that they had a lot of influence and a lot of worshippers, so that they might be elevated to greater deity versus lesser deity. That's where you had all these chosen running around and stuff. So yeah, history lesson aside, I found Helm was kind of a really interesting take for a Twilight cleric. Simply because you don't really think about him as anything to do with, daytime or nighttime or to the Twilight. But, the Eternal Watcher, that does kind of fit really well with the idea of the Twilight. And then the other Forgotten Realms god is Ilmater, which Ilmater is... Ilmater's all about suffering, not causing it, but enduring it. He's he's a really interesting... the Pain Bearers of Ilmater are a sect of clerics that specifically go out and endure hardships for other people as a way to worship their deity. So they make other people's lives better by making their lives worse. So Ilmater is another one that's like, that's interesting. Anyway, let's dive into the class itself now that we spent 12 minutes talking about Forgotten Realms history. First thing you get at from the first level is your Twilight domain spells. Really simple. Like I said, this is something that every cleric gets. Domain spells are spells that you always have prepared. And sometimes they will give you access to spells that are not on the cleric spell list. These are really kind of obvious Twilight stuff. Probably one of my favorites, Fairy Fire. Fairy Fire is so useful. So many people forget to use it or just undervalue it. Fairy Fire makes them make a dex save. If they fail their dex save, they are lined in this purple pinkish flame. All attacks against them have advantage. They cannot go invisible. So it is a first level spell that counters any invisibility whatsoever. It's an area attack, so you don't actually have to target anyone. You can target an area. So if you do have invisible enemies, as long as you know roughly where they are, you can Fairy Fire the area, and then they're no longer invisible, and you get advantage on all your attacks. Fairy Fire is super useful. Moonbeam is another one that's super useful. That before some clarifications, people used to use it as just this like beam of death, where they would just drag it around to destroy things. Doesn't work like that, but it is still really useful. And the nice thing about Moonbeam is anything that gets hit in it and fails it as a saving throw against Moonbeam, that is magically transformed, automatically reverts back to their natural state. So it's incredibly effective against druids, against spellcasters that use polymorph and things like that, because it will instantly cancel those spells and those abilities, which for a druid, unless they're like level 20 and they have infinite shape changes, Moonbeam can effectively get rid of their transformation, which is a huge thing for druids, specifically wild druids. So, yeah. Then there's other things: Leomund's Tiny Hut, Aura of Life, Greater Invisibility, and then another one that's super fun, Mislead, which is effectively you cast it, and what happens is you turn invisible, but a copy of you appears in your square and runs off. So it looks like all that happens is you run away, but they have this little copy that they can see, and you can go do whatever you want. Mislead is super fun. In addition, at first level, you also get bonus proficiencies. Twilight Domain gets martial weapons and heavy armor, so this is going to be a weapon-based cleric. Nothing too fancy there. And then finally, you get Eyes of Night, which is kind of the game changer for this. And there's one other thing after this too. So let's do Eyes of Night first. You have dark vision out to a range of 300 feet. In that radius, you can see in dim light as it were bright light, and in darkness as if it was dim light. That's how dark vision works. However, dark vision is, for almost every character that has dark vision, it's 60 feet. That is all you can see. You can see 60 feet. Anything beyond that, you are blind. There is improved dark vision, which you can get through a bunch of different things. Dark elves get it just intrinsically because they grow up in the Underdark. That's 120 feet. So a little bit better. This dark vision is 300 feet. It is more than twice. It's really 2.5 times larger than improved dark vision. This is massively useful, especially because of the second half of this ability. As an action, you can magically share the dark vision of this feature with willing creatures you can see within 10 feet of you, up to a number of creatures equal to your wisdom modifier. The shared darkness lasts for an hour. Once you share it, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a spell slot of any level to share it again. So I played Shadow Monk for years. I love my Shadow Monk. One of the things I would do, because this is the Adventure League, the Adventurers League, is you would always meet up with the group you're going to adventure with for that game. You would always, almost always, meet up in a town somewhere, and you would have a hook that gets you there. But in general, what would happen is before we would leave to go on our adventure, I would almost always go, okay, who doesn't have dark vision? And I'd find out who, and what I would do is I would cast dark vision. It was one of the things I could do. Dark vision is non-concentration. It gives them dark vision up to 60 feet for 8 hours. And it costs 2 key points to use. But what about all the other stuff you need your key points for? Aha! So it's not concentration, so I can give it to anyone I will want to. And it lasts 8 hours. I get my key points back on a short rest. So would cast dark vision, we would take a short rest right after, I would have full key, and the entire party would have dark vision, meaning we never had to use a light spell, we never had to light it to the torch, nothing. We could travel in complete and utter darkness and be perfectly fine. It was incredibly useful. And this is going to be even more useful. Now, it only lasts for an hour instead of 8 hours, so you have to be a little bit more stringent about when you use it, but you get one use for free, and then all you need is to spend a first level spell slot, which once you get to higher little levels, you're not using a ton of first level spell slots, other than maybe for Fairy Fire, but you're not using a ton of first level spell slots. So you can just use them for this Eyes of Night. You probably won't use it more than maybe twice or 3 times a day, because adventuring for more than 3 hours straight is relatively rare. Or 3 hours when you need dark vision. You may be traveling for 8 hours in a day or something. But actually being in a situation where dark vision is essential for more than 3 hours in a day is a little bit rare. Yeah, super, super useful. And 300 feet. Because even monsters that have the dark vision are at most going to be able to see 100 feet. If you have like a ranger or a spell slinger in your party, they can be far enough outside their range that the enemy won't know what's hitting them, because the creature hitting them is over 100 feet outside of their vision. They'll know a rough direction, and that's it. And so as long as you have a large enough area of the darkness, you can take out entire groups without them ever even knowing where you are, because you're so far outside of their range that they can't see it. The other thing that's nice about being that far away is things like counterspell don't work that far away, and don't work if they can't see you. Yeah, like just crazy useful being able to do that. The last thing you get at first level is Vigilant Blessing. As an action, you give one creature you touch, including possibly your self, advantage on the next initiative roll the creature makes. This benefit ends immediately after the roll, or if you use this feature again. So this is nice because it has no limits. You just can only use it on one creature at a time. And advantage on initiative is super useful. It's the reason that my Shadow Monk carried around a Trident of Warning. Shadow Monk couldn't use a Trident. Shadow Monk never made a single attack from level 5 to level 17. Never made a single attack or wielded his Trident of Warning. But he always had it on him because he couldn't be surprised. And it gave an advantage on initiative checks, which meant more often than not, my monk was the first character to go and could go out and stun lock the really dangerous guys before they could do anything. It was massively useful. This being able to give anyone you want that ability, a lot of times it can be useful to give it to yourself, but as a cleric, a lot of times being a cleric, it's actually more beneficial to have a few of the enemies go before you, so you can kind of react to things. Like healing can't be done until after someone's hit. Seeing exactly what the abilities of the enemies are and which ones are going to be targeted first can help you kind of choose your buffs and things like that, or where you want to cast your really powerful spells. So you may want to give the benefit to, maybe if you have an assassination rogue, they get a lot of benefits on creatures that haven't acted yet in combat, so that can be really useful. Again, giving it to your monk can mean they can take a bad guy out of combat effectively. Giving it to like a paladin can allow them to go in and smite someone to death before they can do something. So you have a lot of choices as to who you use it on, and it's always useful. So yeah. So that's everything you get at first level. At second level, you get your channel to Divinity, and this really is the defining feature of this subclass, and it leans very, very heavily into the channel Divinity for the rest of the class. The channel Divinity is Twilight Sanctuary. As an action, you present your holy symbol, and a sphere of twilight emanates from you. The sphere centered on you has a 30-foot radius and is filled with dim light. The sphere moves with you, and it lasts for a minute or until you're incapacitated to die. Whenever a creature, including you, ends its turn in the sphere, you can grant the creature one of these benefits. You grant it temporary hit points equal to 1d6 plus your cleric level, or you can end one effect on it, causing it to be charmed or frightened. So there's a lot to unpack here. First things first, dim light. If you do not have dark vision, any perception check made on something that's in dim light is made at disadvantage. So right from the get-go, dim light has more of an effect than a lot of people think it does. In addition to that, things like my Shadow Monk lived for dim light. Most of my abilities required me to be in dim light or darkness, so something like this is extremely useful for characters that use darkness, like rogues, like shadow monks, like the things like that. So the ability to become a mobile dim light source is really, really nice, especially since, again, for my monk, if I wanted to use like my shadow step against a character that had a light spell cast on it or was carrying a torch, I couldn't, because I couldn't teleport into an area of bright light. I could only do it into the dim light, and the bright light would be far enough that sometimes it'd be more than I could move. With this, they could literally just go over to where the spell is and cause it to cast dim light instead of bright light, which changes a lot of things. So yeah, super useful. Temporary hit points are always good, and then being able to end charmed and frightened conditions can be life savers. Especially if you're dealing with something like a succubus or a vampire, where they can literally just control one of your party members and make them attack you, or if you're dealing with an enchantment spellcaster that can use things like dominate person, that can be really useful to be able to just walk over and go, no, you're done. You are no longer to charmed or frightened. Now, the only limitation to it is it does have to end its turn in there. So theoretically, a smart controller would tell them to just get away from the cleric. But if you play your chips right and you maneuver things correctly, you can get it set up to a point where they can't get out of it. And again, because it's Channel Divinity, this is not a concentration spell, so it's not like they can stop you. It's not a spell at all, so they can't counterspell it, dispel magic, any thing. This is just something you get to do. So really cool and unique and fun. At 6th level, you get Steps of Night. As a bonus action, when you are in dim light or darkness, you can magically give yourself a flying speed equal to your walking speed for 1 minute. You can use this bonus action number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So when we look at synergy, Twilight Sanctuary can give you a mobile area of the dim light. So that means you can always use the Steps of Night as long as you have a Channel Divinity available to you. In addition to that, anytime you're in dim light or darkness, you can fly. Now, because this particular cleric has proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor, this effectively means you can create a flying ranged weapon-based cleric. Because a lot of clerics tend to, if you have heavy armor proficiency, you tend to devalue your dexterity and go a little more strength build. You could create a really interesting cleric that uses thrown weapons, like probably the one I would like the best is maybe like a throwing hammer. Or if you can get something like a dwarven thrower that returns to you, you could be a really effective kind of flying to the turret. Or if you've got an artificer that can infuse your weapon with the returning property, you could do some pretty cool stuff. You could also use javelins. You could even use, daggers and stuff like that. Anything that has the thrown property would work, and you could use your strength for it. Otherwise, you could be a much more dex-based cleric, and you could use a longbow or a short bow and just go to town, especially with your 300 feet of the dark vision. You could be flying 60, 70, 80 feet in the air and just firing off stuff with your bow. and they'd never be able to touch you because they couldn't see you. As long as you move just a little bit, they'll know the rough direction you're in, but they'll never be able to figure out where you are. You can see them cast any spells you need to. Anytime you need to get close enough to cast a little bit shorter range spell, you can, and then you just go back away. Like, it's just massively useful. Yeah. When you get to 8th level, you get Divine Strike. That's the other indication this is supposed to be a weapon-based cleric. And with Divine Strike, you do an extra 1d8 radiant damage once per turn when you hit with a weapon attack. And at 14th level, you do 2d8 extra damage. So again, raining down damage from above, while every so often casting spells to keep your party alive, is just cool. Cool. Finally, at 17th level, you get Twilight Shroud, which really changes things. The Twilight that you summon offers a protective embrace. You and your allies have half cover while in the sphere created by your Twilights as a sanctuary. So this is another thing that improves your channel divinity, one of those defining features of the cleric. And this is actually pretty big. If you're not aware of what half cover means, half cover in most situations means you have enough of your body blocked from view from another creature that the creature can only see about half of your body, and that actually gives you a +2 bonus to your AC. If you have what's called 3/4 cover, where 3/4 of your body is missed, you have a +5 bonus to AC. So this effectively means your channel divinity, in addition to, by the time you're at 17th level, you do 1d6 plus 17 temporary hit points anytime a creature ends its turn in, anytime a creature you want to give it to ends its turn within your sphere. And now you're also giving it a +2 bonus to AC. This will be the one thing where being super far away and raining down damage for above probably wouldn't be the greatest idea, because you do want to be close enough that your allies can use it. However, it's a 30-foot sphere, so you could still be, 15, 20 feet in the air, which is still out of melee range of most of any melee character, raining down damage, and all of your allies will just be below you, still within this sphere, still getting their bonus to AC, still getting their extra temporary hit points, still being able to end charmed or for frightened conditions. Like, there's just so much you can do with this to make your party much more difficult to kill. In addition to that, half cover can be used to hide with certain class features and the things like that. So this, the ability to give them half cover instead of just giving them a +2 bonus to AC, really adds a lot of versatility to other classes that rely on cover for a number of the things. It also means if you have an enemy that has something like the sharpshooter feat, that allows them to ignore half cover and 3/4 cover, you won't get a benefit. You won't get that extra AC against them, but they're relatively rare for monsters to have that ability. So, yeah, just really useful. Anytime you can just add a flat AC bonus, it is phenomenally useful. Final thoughts. This is such a cool subclass, and it's one of the first cleric subclasses, at least of the ones I'm aware of, that actually puts the emphasis on making the channel divinity the star of the class. I think a lot of people don't quite value channel divinity nearly as much as they should, especially since it is a defining feature of the cleric, and it is a traditional feature of the cleric. It is something that has existed as part of the cleric kit since original Dungeons and Dragons, is their ability to turn undead and do things like that. So I like the fact that this really puts a heavy emphasis on making that channel divinity extremely useful. And it really makes this a very interesting cleric to play. Anyway, that is going to be all for me today. As always, if you enjoyed this, please hit the like button. It really does do a lot. It helps the video get seen by a lot of other people. And in addition to that, if you're new here, or if you're here a lot and you just haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button. The majority of my audience is not subscribed. So I'd really like to see that number ticking down. I'm currently on a 4 video a week schedule, so there's plenty of content coming out of here. Mondays and Wednesdays are D&D deep dives. Tuesdays and Thursdays are TJ and friends play games, and the game currently is Legend of Grimrock. It's a super fun kind of let's play series where I create characters based on my friends, and then yell at them as bad things happen to us in our PGs. So it's super fun. So definitely hit that subscribe button. Also, hit that notification bell and turn on notifications so that anytime there's a lot of videos that come out in a day, mine might get buried. Or because of my own rotten mental health, sometimes I post videos at weird times. And this ensures that you're never going to miss any of my videos. So in the comments below, how do you want to build your Twilight? Do you want to make a Twilight cleric that uses just a massive scythe and is death in Karnets? Do you want to use the flying hammer throwing? Like, basically, do you want to create a Hammer Bros cleric? Because that would be super awesome. Let me know in the comments below how you want to use your weapons as a Twilight cleric. Otherwise, again, that is all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.